Today, I'm joined by someone who brings both deep academic insight and real world therapeutic experience to the conversation. Nidhi Kothiyal is a counseling psychologist, trained hypnotherapist, and PhD candidate in positive psychology. With expertise in CBT, ACT, IPT, and hypnotherapy, their work bridges science and self exploration to promote mental well being. As the founder of Manobodh Mental Wellness Foundation, they are dedicated to making mental health care accessible through workshops, counseling, and outreach. The research focuses on the psychological well-being of youth, and they hold international accreditations in psychotherapy from the Royal Australian and New Zealand College of Psychiatrists. With a deep passion for understanding consciousness, ego psychology, and the nature of the self, they bring a holistic and evidence-based approach to therapy. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much, Leah. Thank you for having me.
So, today, my podcast is a space where we break down mental health and everything in between in a way that actually makes sense. I'm Dia Kithani, and today I am joined by someone who knows the ins and outs of mental well being. Now, we know mental health is finally getting the attention it deserves, but let's be real, terms like CBT, ACT, and hypnotherapy still sound intimidating to a lot of people, including myself. Uh, are they just buzzwords? No, they're not. But today we're breaking it all down. Let's start with the basics. What exactly are CBT, ACT, and hypnotherapy? How do they differ? And when might someone choose one over the other?
Yeah. Hi there. So there are lots of questions, but the important ones. So I'll take them one by one. So first of all, in therapy, we use many models, right? These models are backed by research. And based on these models and research, people have, I mean, psychologists and researchers have come with solid therapeutic interventions. So CBT is cognitive behavior therapy. Very commonly, we also call it talk therapy, right? So cognitive behavior therapy is made up of two words, cognitive and behavior. Cognitions means all our mental processes. So be it your perceptions, be it your thoughts, your thinking, your imagination, your language, how you perceive things, how you judge things. All these are mental processes, right? And every mental process we break down into like every mental process, the unit of every mental process is a thought, right? And our thought guides our behavior. So behavior is outwardly actions. In CBT, essentially what we do is we address the thoughts, the cognitions, and we see how these thoughts and cognitions can bring change, the desirable behavior settings. Let's say, for example, somebody who is a chain smoker, suddenly someday they decide that they want to quit smoking. Now, smoking is a behavior, right? So when they go to a CBT expert, what they would be exploring is how this habit of this action or behavior of smoking, what are the thoughts back this behavior? Because every action is backed by a belief system, a core belief system, right? So therapists might want to break down what is the belief system that the client holds about themselves, because of which a defense mechanism or a behavior of smoking is so desirable to the client. So we work on thoughts in CBT. And then we come to like, how the initial movement of therapy or psychology started sometime in early 1900s in Europe. So they were all focused, Freud and all his whoever came after Freud, Jung and everybody, they were heavily focused in psychoanalysis of a person. What happened in the childhood? What happened in the past? And at that point, at some point in 50s and 60s, there was this gentleman by the name of Aaron Beck. He was also a psychoanalyst, but then he saw that it could take years and years for a client to think that what happened in my past, this and that. So he came up with CBT. That let past be past. Let us see what thought is actually triggering this behavior, and it just address the thought and change the behavior. So it gained quite a moment and quite popularity during those days, and still it remains one of the most popular to-go talk therapy. When you talk about ACT, we call it ACT as an action, the shortcut of action, ACT. So ACT is it's comparatively new, somewhere in the 80s, if I can remember properly. Stephen Hayes or somebody of similar name, he was the proponent of ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy. So what does ACT do is CBT aims at changing the thought, replacing one dysfunctional thought with a more functional one, right? ACT says we do not need to change thoughts because we are not our thoughts.
Okay.
Let us just accept all the thoughts, be it positive or negative, and creating that gap between the self and the thought. But ACT, as I said, is like shortcut of action, ACT. So it focuses a lot on action. So we don't just stop in accepting the thought. We also believe in continuing to do positive actions, actions which align with the value system of the individual. Now, for example, somebody comes to an ACT therapist and they are like, they're going through grief, right? They might have experienced some heartbreak or death, and there's a lot of grief. So an ACT therapist would help them to create a space within them to accommodate those heavy feelings of grief, and yet not stopping to do their day-to-day actions which align to their value system.
Okay.
Now, align to value system is a key word here. For example, in order to calm grief, one might resort to smoking, to addiction, or any other kind of dysfunctional system, right? So in ACT, we remind the client what their core values are and continue to do actions which align with the core values. So if a person was not into addictions prior to this event of grief, that means I'm sure for most of us, being an addict is not one of the core values, because the core values of self are usually the positive emotions, right? The uh, the emotions of gratitude, the emotions of optimism, the emotions of hope, the emotions of knowing self. So these all positive emotions are attributed to the real self, the real part within us, right? Inside the mind, inside all the personality layers, the real me. So whatever the value system of that real me is, we encourage client to continue doing that action while holding on to those negative feelings, because eventually we help client to understand they are not their thoughts. Thought can be positive, they can be negative, and there's so many thoughts running in our head, but we are not our thoughts, right? So CBT will work on shifting the thought. ACT will work on let it be, mindfulness techniques, accept everything, continue to move ahead, align with your values.
Got it.
Coming to the third one, hypnotherapy.
Yes.
Now, hypnotherapy is a therapy which uses hypnosis as a tool, right? So hypnosis is a state of, some call it an altered state of consciousness. And usually we define hypnosis as a state of deep, intense focus. And that focus is internal.
Yeah.
So deep internal focus. And what happens in that internal focus is that the awareness of the surroundings, the environment or the periphery reduces down drastically.
Yeah.
Right? So the outside awareness shrinks, the awareness towards the inside processes sharpens.
Okay.
And usually the state of hypnosis is marked by alpha brain waves. So our brain waves are like electrical impulses. That's how our neurons connect with one neuron, sends messages to another neuron via these electrical signals. So there are four or five brain waves like beta, gamma, alpha. So alpha brain waves are of the range of say 11, 10, 9, 8 hertz. So usually hypnosis is accompanied wherein from the hyperactive beta state, a client's mind will shift towards the lower brain frequencies of alpha, and in the deeper state of trance, even to theta. And theta are also the brain waves which are highly associated with deep meditative states. Now, why I'm telling about these brain waves is because the more a person moves in alpha and theta states, the higher the chances of healing and recovery happens. So the cell recovery also fastens in these states. And we naturally achieve these states in a day when we are listening to a great piece of music, when we are taking walk in the nature. You know, we are totally relaxed when we are painting something, when we are deeply
Yeah.
indulged in that moment, mindfulness. So alpha state we can easily achieve. But to achieve the deeper state, what usually happens is people usually fall asleep. So their awareness also goes into sleep. But when I'm talking about hypnotherapy, we achieve these states, but our focus sharpens even more. That means while the brain makes that transition from higher levels of brain, the hyper brain waves to the slower brain waves, our attention remains intact. We won't fall asleep.
Yeah.
So
I
a lot of stuff.
understand that, but what are the methods that you use to help the person in question achieve this state when you're trying to do hypnotherapy?
Yes. So there are a couple of ways in which one can achieve the state of trance. Let's call it trance, right? Hypnosis has a lot of negative connotation as
And
well.
it's not waving a pocket watch until a person claps the
Yes,
magic.
yes. People are always curious and they'll keep asking these questions like, will you be able to take out all my secrets? Will you know what my ATM PIN card is? And all these kind of people are curious, like they're generally curious. So, no, it is not mind reading. So, under hypnotic trance, a person is able to reach in those deep corners of their subconscious mind and sometimes even in the unconscious mind, which would otherwise would not be easily available to us in our aware state. So, like as of now, if you and me are talking, right? So, your awareness is mostly here and now.
Yeah.
You might be thinking, okay, what is the next question I need to post to Nidhi? If the internet connection is proper, the light is correct, and everything, you know. So your brain and even my brain, as of now, the part of our awareness is totally focused in here and now,
Yeah.
right? But there are multiple number of programs that are still running in our mind. We are not aware of them. Your heart is beating, the digestion is going on, the cells are doing their own work, and everything is happening without even our awareness. So that doesn't mean they do not exist within our system. They do exist. It's just that our awareness does not reach them very frequently.
Got
And
it.
in the state of hypnosis, we help clients through direct or indirect suggestions to to take their awareness to that deeper layers of their minds, where maybe some traumas are stored, maybe some faulty programmings are stored, and then we work on those faulty
Wait,
programs.
when you say suggestions, is it like a conversation that you're having with the client?
Yes, yes. So hypnosis can be conversational hypnosis as well. Milton Erickson was the famous person who came up with the concept of conversational hypnosis or the indirect hypnosis, because when it started, it was very, the therapist was usually this authoritative person, and they would say, okay, close your eyes and take 10 deep breaths, and this is very authoritative. But Milton Erickson came up with a very indirect style of hypnosis where he used the day-to-day conversational language, stories, and metaphors to take a person very gently into trance.
Okay.
So the defense mechanism of people would be automatically down because that usually people who are very rational and logical thinking, they associate hypnosis with loss of control, and it's very difficult with such clients to practice direct hypnosis. So these conversational hypnosis is very useful with such logically oriented clients.
Wait, are there non-conversational hypnosis techniques as well?
uh, non I mean, see, hypnosis can be achieved with or without words.
Okay.
I mean, people see, understand, hypnosis में तीन चीजें हो रही है ना. So number one is your focus shifts inward. Number two is your awareness of the outside world decreases.
Hmm.
And number three is that your brainwaves start to reach the states of alpha and theta. So these three states can be achieved with the help of words of the therapist or without the help of words of therapist. Meditators do
Yeah.
achieve this state just by focusing on their breath, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I understand now.
Hmm.
All right, let's get into something that doesn't get talked about enough. Although it's talked about enough, I don't think it's being applied enough. Men's mental health. We hear phrases like "man up," "boys don't cry." I have male friends. I have my father. They struggle with opening up, even though a lot of men today hesitate to seek therapy and talk about what they're going through. Why is it? Why do men still hesitate to seek therapy? Is it cultural conditioning, stigma, or something else?
Yes, dear. This is something which is actually really close to me. I'm mother of a son, and I was very sure of one thing that I always taught my son this thing, that seeking help is sign of power. It is sign that you value yourself, right? So what happens is, I experienced this in my 1 year of working at IIT Delhi, and I worked with both male and female students. So working with male students, this theme came up very regularly. So we used to have open house talks and workshops with them, and then they would come up and say, "Ma'am, we didn't realize that these are the issues which are not normal. Like, um, even if you're sleeping in the morning, when you wake up, your mind is full of thoughts and you didn't sleep well." And people would normalize this thing. It's all right not to fall asleep. It's all right just to survive in 1 hour, 2 hours of sleep. It's all right to have this breaking sleep. It's all right to constantly seek some kind of stimulation. And some people were having obsessive thoughts and too many things. And they, in their head, they have normalized, because these conversations are not normal day conversations that you have with your friends or
Give
with
me
your
one
family.
second.
So when they heard about these things, these could be the sign of stress. These could be signs of some bigger mental health issue. They were like, "We really want to come and talk about these things, but we can't be seen walking into the therapy room." Honestly, that was their reaction. So we offered them a opportunity of coming to online sessions also. But over a period of time, when we had more and more such open workshops with them, they opened up and they would walk into the therapy room. But yes, this still is a problematic area, that men do not like to be seen as vulnerable, primarily because in societies they have always been put on a pedestal that they are the problem solvers. They have to be the leaders. So if they are the leaders and they are the problem solvers, how can they have issues and how can they be vulnerable? So this is a very solid societal construct which man also struggle with. Patriarchy is not just harsh on women; it's equally harsh on men. When we box people that this is what you are and this is how you should behave, so that goes against anybody. Each gender suffers. So yes, so we need to have more and more open conversations with people, that knowing. See what happens. You come from India, so you know this better. That in India, academics and numbers are given so much importance, right? And usually you are in maths and computation, but you know how in India it's so gender defined that, oh, boys, they'll take maths. At least it used to be like 15, 20 years back, right? So maths, coding, it's boys area because it's problem solving, because it's logic, right? And humanities, philosophy, thinking, talking, this is female area. So a lot of social construct also are stopping men from seeking help. Now, as a maths kid, I'm able to solve such big problems in maths, and then for a little bit of emotional issue, I have to go and seek therapy. That's so unacceptable to themselves also. So people have to understand this, that if your IQ is good, great, but EQ and IQ are not same thing. You can have great IQ and still you need to learn so many things and develop your EQ. So yeah.
Yeah, just give me 1 second. That is a wonderful input. And I would like to jump into how we can create spaces where men feel comfortable expressing vulnerability. And you also talked about your son. I'd also like to add up onto that question and ask you, does parenting play a part? How we raise men and women differently? Does that play a part in men and their emotional well being?
Exactly. Parenting is the root cause of everything. Trust me, like we as parents, I can talk about subcontinental region, like sons are seen as the one who has to take the legacy forward. Now imagine a 5-year-old, 10-year-old kid having to internalize that subconsciously, that I'm the one who has to take care of my old parents. I'm the one who has to get my sister married. I'm the one who's going to get the big house and whatever. So, and take the legacy forward. So very rarely do I see women. See, girls very easily will uh, behave in a way like, I mean, females have their own kind of pressures. Not to say that parents don't put pressure on female child, but I feel like our sons have been the biggest sufferers of patriarchy. Why should a 10-year-old and 12-year-old not want to paint or pursue a career in dance, but think about engineering or having some hardcore job because it will fetch in more money and hence more respect, and hence his family status will elevate, and hence he'll be able to get married in a better family, and hence the legacy of the family and the family will be proud of. So many young boys drop in their dreams of choosing various careers, but they focus on careers which will make help them make money, because this is the kind of pressure that we are unconsciously putting in our sons. I remember one particular day when my son, and he must be like around 12 and 13, and he told me, we were talking about the choices that he's going to make in a future. So he was telling me, but mommy, I can't afford to choose a thing like, I want to become this and that. I know these are the three fields for me which are going to get me money and stability. So I don't have that, uh, what do you call it? That word is not coming, that luxury. And I was very surprised because he's the only son. And me and my husband have been very open minded about whatever you want to be, follow your dreams. We never pressurize him towards anything. And I was like, where are you getting this from? And then he told me that his friend circle, they were having discussions. That girl can choose this thing, that girl can choose. We are we boys, so we have to do this. We have to clear JE, we have to be a CA or doctor. And it was very surprising because at home we're not having these kinds of discussions, but where is he learning these things from? So these things are very widespread in the society. Parents have to be, see, then what happens when these males grow up? Now they're constantly under the pressure that I'm the one who is shouldering all the responsibility of our family, right? So they don't give themselves a scope to slide down even a little bit or make, and there is no possibility of them going wrong, making mistakes. Also, the pressure that by 25 I should be making this much of money.
Yeah.
So they don't give themselves opportunity to explore a lot of things, which is a lot of pressure to be in. And the moment the son turns 18, he'll drive the car. Now it's his responsibility to take his parents to the medical appointment or to take his grandparents to this and that. And we are putting a lot of responsibilities on our son, which automatically they inherit this thing that now I am the problem solver after my father or after my grandfather. So I can't be seen weak.
Yeah.
So this is detrimental to them because learning responsibility is great. We have to raise responsible children, girl or boy. But then responsible, you can be responsible and you can be vulnerable at the same time. That you're forgetting to teach our sons. Right? And even with little boys now, there are so many parents are here that you can't be crying like girls. Don't be a sissy. So when we use these words, what is the indirect messaging that we are sending to our children? Crying is bad, experiencing any kind of emotion is bad. And even when we see boys, usually one emotion that is very common in boys while growing up is anger, right?
Yeah.
Because of the testosterone and everything. So they are a little more wilder than girls and they're more hyperactive and angry. And Indian parents and everybody around, they want to raise obedient, polite children because they're easy to manage, right? So if your son is getting angry at something because he didn't get a toy or whatever, so we don't allow them to express their anger as well, right?
Yeah.
Because we want everything to be so aesthetically done. No, you cannot express your anger at this. And I constantly tell parents, why? Let that child feel that anger, let that anger come out, just help him calm down so that he feels safe in your company. My emotion is valid. My parents are not scared of my anger. I can reach out to them whenever I'm, see, when a person is feeling angry, basically it's sadness or frustration eventually down there, okay, coming out as an anger. So if you're not allowing your child to express and feel that emotion and he keeps repressing it, he might not get angry in front of you, but he is definitely going to project that anger wherever he can, maybe in the form of road rage, maybe in future with his wife, girlfriend, children. So allowing our children that space that it is all right to feel angry and then helping them to, I mean, teaching them, see, there could be more constructive ways in which you can channelize your anger. Talks won't help here. I always tell parents, if you have a boy who's hyperactive and who is showing this teenage with anger issues, send them to swimming class, send them to martial art class, let them channelize that anger there.
Yeah.
That's a better way
But
because it is
that's an interesting point that you bring up. I wanted to this was one of the questions that I wanted to ask you. How do parents draw the line between like you said validation and accountability? Like if we let the kid express, we are validating their emotion, but there has to be within a line of reason, of course. How do you hold the kid accountable as well? It shouldn't be there have also been instances where men have been raised very freely, and that has not been very good for the society. So
yeah. So we're basically talking about parenting styles. There are basically three kinds of parenting styles. So one of the parenting style is very permissive parenting style, wherein you just allow child to have his ways, right? Because you are a son. So by that virtue of XY chromosome, you're special, right? So that kind of parenting is definitely the problem that you're talking about is happens in this kind of parenting. It's just because you're male, so you're privileged and you can do whatever. And then there is another extreme mind is like authoritarian parenting, wherein my order means you have to toe this line. You cannot do this. You cannot do that. So children coming from these families also rebel a lot whenever they get time. So there is a middle ground, authoritative parenting, which means you be the parent, you teach your child to be disciplined, but you also provide that space for your child to let him grow the way he wants to grow, to let him express his emotion the way he wants to express. You just watch and observe your child. guide him wherever he's going wrong. But I mean, you don't have to be best friends with your child. You can be a good parent. Like, see, friends are like, if you're failing an exam, your friend will be like, okay, yeah, it's okay, let's go and have a glass of beer and everything will be all right. You don't want yourself to be in that position. You want your child to come up to you, I'm failing in this test and I'm really worried, and there is a letter going to come from my college. So how do I deal with this? And then as a parent, you tell them, okay, it's okay, failures and successes are part of life and blah blah blah, and this is how you handle it, right? So having that balance is really really important, and I think in particular Indian families, so it's missing. It's very extreme. Either it is permissive parenting or either it is authoritarian parenting. Both of them have their own negative repercussions.
Right.
Did I answer the question or did I just laugh?
So I will redirect the question if you did not. I was going to ask you, many people like you talked about how there are multiple ways of parenting. Many parents just focus on the financial readiness. There has to be an emotional readiness within parents themselves to be able to raise children. What are your thoughts on that? And maybe you can give a few tips to new parents as well.
Yes, Dia, this is a very important. See, so there is a growing trend in urban centers. Parents now they have become affluent, so they are giving everything to their child. And the reason that they give is we didn't have it when we were child, so we're giving it to children. Now the child didn't ask it, but because you as a child didn't have it, so you're thinking it's being a very good parent. So you're not parenting your child, you're just fulfilling your inner desires, which were unfulfilled when you were growing up. You didn't have those things and those toys, so you're just filling up his cabinet. So financial readiness is one thing, but emotional readiness is really important. And I don't know how many people will connect with this or not, but I always say this thing: just because you're biologically capable or financially capable doesn't mean you're also suitable to be a parent. So before you want to be parent to a child, be a good parent to yourself. Heal your inner child, heal your wounds, because that is how you're going to help your child be more emotionally mature and resilient. So these parents who have a lot of money and they're buying too many things for children, they are not doing any good to their children. They are just uh, living their lives, unfulfilled lives through their children. And why should a child be?
That is interesting. You talked about healing your inner
Oh,
child.
yeah.
Um, what are some like small daily practices to people who are already parents that they can like use daily to like be able to accommodate their children and then themselves?
So awareness is the first step, and half the time people are not aware. So taking therapy would be really good, but for that also you need some level of awareness that I might need therapy, right? So there are certain markers there which will tell you if you need therapy or not,
Yeah.
right? So in therapy, the final goal of any therapy is to become a more integrated person with a lot of psychological flexibility and mental clarity.
Yeah.
So mental clarity, psychological flexibility, and a whole integrated person, somebody who has worked with their shadows, somebody who has worked with their inner child, and therefore they're not living a life of lack or deficiency, but a life of fulfillment and flourishing. And those kind of people are well suited to be good parents. See, parenting is also kind of gamble. Sometimes I have seen absolutely wonderful people and their children, because there's so many things in a child's environment that impacts his upbringing, not just the parents, in schools, in teacher, and so many things. So sometimes really good people also will come to the therapy room and say that their child has chosen a wrong path or something. And sometimes they're horrible, horrible parents, but the child turns out to be really a gem.
Yeah.
So I won't say ki, it has to be customized. It can't be like one path works for all or one thing works for all. But as a parent, I think you should be able to work out on your own issues, your deal with your traumas first, and then decide to become a parent.
It's a very interesting point that you bring up, that we need self-awareness enough to be able to recognize that we need therapy. What about the people who are not as self-aware? How do we deal with those people? Because in my personal experience, although I'm not a professional, I've had times where I've thought like, oh, this person definitely needs therapy, but they don't go about that. How do we deal with that?
Okay, so the first part of your question, how does anybody know that they need therapy? So basically, what people think is that the ultimate goal of therapy is that one should seek therapy only when they have some mental illness, some psychiatric disorder. So psychiatric disorders are the severe kinds, right? Like your bipolar, your schizophrenia, some severe or developmental disorder, neurodevelopmental disorder. So then it is pretty clear, yes, you definitely need mental health experts to come in. But for normal people who are not experiencing any serious mental illness, right? How should they know if they need therapy or not, right? So there is another goal of therapy, which is self-development, right? So in positive psychology, we talk about mental wellness and mental health. And mental health is not just absence of mental illness. It means that you're flourishing, not just surviving, right? So there's so many people who may not have any known psychiatric disorder, but they can definitely help from getting therapy. So how can one know, like, if you feel stuck, if you feel there are certain patterns that you're repeating in your relationships, right? If you feel you're not able to handle your thoughts, there are a lot of negative thoughts. If you feel you're experiencing signs of stress, high level of stress, particularly burnout, where your body starts showing you signals like your heartbeat is fast, you experience trembling in hands, and your stomach is constantly upset before any important meeting or presentation. So these are some of the signs. If you're experiencing panic attacks, if you're experiencing anxiety, if you are experiencing low moods for a very prolonged period of time, for more than 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and your regular coping mechanism, like going out with your friends, talking to your sister or mother, and it's not helping you out, and still that low mood persists, that is a short sign that you can use therapy. And apart from that also, some people come to therapy with the goal of self development. They want to move to the next step of their life. They feel stuck. What now? We also call it like existential crisis sometimes, right? That I have achieved so much, I'm in my 40s, what now? I really don't understand what, these are the things I so badly wanted in my 20s, I have achieved them, now what? I feel stuck. So these are the exploratory goals of therapy, wherein you want to explore more of your life's journey and where you want to be. So the growth mindset. So also there is one important thing, like there are so many dysfunctionalities in family and traumas that one experiences while growing up, and they tend to normalize it. So if you think you're somebody who have experienced uh, growing up in a dysfunctional family, or you have had experience of some trauma, you should definitely seek therapy, even if these traumas or that dysfunctionality are a part of your past and they are no more impacting you at present. But sometimes what happens, these negative emotions, they get stored up in our bodies, and then they present themselves in the form of psychosomatic disorders, like you will be experiencing unexplained pains, and you'll be falling sick, probably develop an autoimmune disorder. So if you ever feel there is something in your past or something in your present that needs resolution, do not shy away. Go to a therapist and get your issues resolved.
Can we circle back to what about people who are not as self-aware and how
So
do
the
we
second part of the question, for people who are not self-aware, they are honestly, there is nothing we can do about them. So I talked about acceptance and commitment therapy. Probably that is a time we should be applying ACT on ourselves when we see people around us who are dysfunctional and who are not yet self-aware to go to the therapy room. Uh, Probably then we need to apply the concepts of acceptance to ourselves and see what is in their behavior that is triggering me so much,
right?
right? Because true acceptance would mean that I, true acceptance does not mean that I agree to everything that you say. True acceptance just means that I know this is how you are. And with your eccentricities, with all your eccentricities, I can create a space for you. I might not have to agree with you all the time. I know I need not to be best of your friends, but that is how you are. And I just pray to God someday you realize that your ways are not too useful, not just to other people, but also to yourself. And then they have that moment of insight and they decide to seek help.
So nothing
Otherwise,
can be done if if they're not willing to do it themselves.
see, if somebody is in the category of serious psychiatric disorder or illness, in that time one can argue that the family member have to take them to the help, because at that point of time they're not in a state to make best decision for themselves. So that's a separate case. When we are talking about serious mental illness, in that case family members have to chip in and have to take them to the expert. But if you're talking about generic population experiencing certain dysfunctionality, not of the category of psychiatric illness, but of the general say some personality disorder or grief related issue or so, and if they are not ready to seek therapy, you can definitely talk to them. You can offer them a lending empathetic ear, because sometimes just non-judgmental conversations
Yeah.
does a lot of catharsis in a person, and then they start opening up. And if you have built that faith and trust with them, then probably you can ask them, I know somebody who took therapy and they benefited a lot, and probably you can also go and see a therapist. But if there is somebody whose defenses are really high and they start proving you like, how dare you point fingers at me and this and that, so they're not at that level of acceptance, and it's better to leave them at whatever they're doing. There's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah. It's good to know that from a professional. It's good to get good to understand the perspective of what you can do in that situation from a professional. So thank you for that. Let's get into social media. Social media has completely changed how we interact, but is it doing more harm than good for mental health? What have you seen in your practice? Like, do platforms like Instagram distort our perception of relationships and self-worth? In my experience, I have had to I have had to make a lot of changes in my lifestyle and in my mindset to be able to be socially present and to be a sane person. So, what's your opinion on that?
So Dia, I come from a generation. So I was born in 80s, early 80s. So I come from a generation who was away from social media, away from mobile phones while we were growing up. So now when I see the difference in our the way we were uh, handling things in our adolescence
Yeah.
vis-a-vis how today's adolescents are behaving, I see a stark difference, and I feel really bad for them. I feel really, really bad for them. We had so much of time to spend with our friends, like physically. We were out there. We would go out in the evenings for long walks, for talks, those little girl tea parties and changing the dresses and all those silly things that girls do. And I used to write diaries so much. I was a lot into journaling. I remember I come from a generation where if my friend moved to another city, we wrote letters. I still have those collection of letters. It felt so personal. So even if I have not connected with my friend for 10 years, if I look into that those cards and letters, it feels so not just nostalgic, but I feel that deep connection with them. And this generation does they are connected 24/7 to so many people, and yet there is lack of that deep connection which our generation experience. So there are so many things on the platter, so many choices, and yet you're not able to engage deeply with even one single person.
Yeah.
So your attention is divided into so many things. There's so many options, which is definitely detrimental for anybody's psychological well-being.
Yeah.
Trust me. Our brains are not developed for so much of information absorption. I mean, it took millions and millions of years for us to reach this level of physical maturity, and this prefrontal cortex developed to this extent, the part of our brain which makes the logical decisions for us. And suddenly, there is in last 10 years so much bombardment of information constantly. We don't need so much information. Our brains are not designed to handle it. Our body, our system, our emotions are not designed to handle so many options and information. So this is definitely detrimental. And you talked about Instagram life and having this false perception of reality. Definitely, it is distorting our perception of reality because it's easy to be in our head and be in fantasy world. It's really very easy. But is it really good for us? That is the question one should be asking, right? So some people are very smart and they use very smart use of technology. I'll say you and I are those smart people. We are sitting continents apart,
Yeah.
and yet we are making use of, we connected via social media, and we are making full use of technology. This is what technology was meant for, right?
Right.
So making connections, sitting so far apart in different time zones, different continents, that's a good way of using social media. But if whole night I'm chatting with 10 people sitting in different time zones, I mean, I'm not able to know even one single person. What is the point of indulging in all that? So social media definitely is making us more shallow, more emotionally immature, mostly because we do not give enough attention and time to one experience. See, growth happens when you involve deeply with one experience in your life. You don't need to know 10 people. You just need to know two people, but know them really well. And in order to know that person really well, connect with that person really well, you need to spend time with them.
Yeah.
So those things are just missing because of social media. So I think our
I
mental health is definitely getting impacted.
Yeah, but like you are also a parent, right? You also have a son, and then you're also a professional. How can we use social media mindfully without letting it control our mental state? I've had a lot of trial and error myself. I was in a generation where social media was already there, it persisted. The boom happened, the Instagram boom happened, and then just everything changed very quickly, especially post-COVID, when everybody set out to be a content creator, and there was just so much content that we were bombarded with as youngsters. What are your thoughts on like how we can use it mindfully?
So what I think is that having that, so parents have to tell it to their children, right? Because children are born in this generation. I mean, I know so many kids, they're like 1 year old, 6 month old, and their parents have already handed the iPad to them. So they don't know anything other than that,
Yeah.
right? So one has to go very scientifically. Young brains are not, let young brains develop in the pace nature has meant it to develop. Don't provide these additional gadgets and bright lights and quickly, from one channel to another channel, because young brains are not well formed enough to soak in so much of information. So
That's
on a biological level also, the neural networks will not develop well. So it's like you can't be constantly eating junk food, right? So similarly, treat social media as a junk food. So you eat it to change a flavor, especially when you're using it for young children. I'm not talking about working professionals because it has become a necessity for us. Many people are making their money because of social media. So probably things are different for them. I'm talking about young toddlers, right? So treat social media or internet or gadgets like a junk thing. So do you really want your child to be constantly consuming junk stuff for like 8 hours a day, 2 hours a day, right? So like in junk food, okay, on weekends we'll have pizza, or once in a day I can offer you a bag of chips. Similarly, treat internet or any kind of technology and tell your children that, okay, maybe for 1 hour I'll give you the iPad, or for 1 hour you're allowed to see this. So that kind of distinction you have to. But then children ask this question, but you are constantly on your phone, then why are you stopping? That is
right.
very, right? But you'll have to work out some way. Like you have to tell a child that, see, I'm of this age, and there are a lot of things from my office and this and that which I need to attend. So you cannot compare. And also, when you're around children, if the children will learn from imitation, right? So you have to be the right model for them. So if you're constantly looking in your phone, if you're taking your phone to the washroom before sleeping, if you're for 1 hour on your phone, how are you going to tell it to your child? Right? Like one thing that I'm trying to tell my child these days to get rid of is that they're constantly something in their ears. And right, I literally use this term, you're frying your brain. You're not allowed to fry your brain for more than 30 minutes at a stretch. So you give break to your ears and then you use it again. So these little things you have to tell to your children, and it all boils down to your self-discipline, because your child considers you as your role model. So
Yeah,
if he sees parents constantly on phone, on social media, there's no way you can keep them away from it. So that's one thing.
right. Okay, so now we're going to go to the segment called Rewiring the Brain for Happiness. You have dealt with you've talked to so many people in your profession. Has there been some simple lifestyle changes that drastically impacts our mental health?
Yes, yes. So it also depends on client to client with what presenting issues they're coming to us. But there are a few things which can be helpful to most of the people because they have worked with my clients as well. They have worked with me as well, right? I think staying connected to nature is such an underrated thing. You would not believe, Dia, our bodies crave for nature. Like simple things like touching a bark of a tree, walking on grass, listening to the birds chirping. I mean, people would not just get out of their office and their houses for days and days. They're just moving from one building to another building. And particularly if you happen to live in an urban belt, oh my God. So go out in nature, please. Half an hour, 1 hour a day, that is like mandatory. You'll just see the shift in those buzzing negative thoughts. You need to see green. You need to be out there in sunlight. You need to see the stars. You need to see the blue skies. You need to admire the beauty of the clouds. Please do that for 30 minutes, for an hour in a day, at least. Number one. Number two, once you're out in nature, after appreciating the nature and everything, going out in nature does not mean you have to be on your phone or making reels. Just be with the nature, just be with the nature and practice some very simple mindfulness techniques. Mindfulness means just engaging with the moment. For example, if you happen to like here in Delhi area, there's a lot of peacocks. So if you happen to see a peacock, just stay over there and admire the beauty of peacock. If you see some sparrow, just stay with the sparrow and admire the beauty of the sparrow. In the evenings, I go out for the walk. It's a time of moonrise. Just appreciate the beauty of moon. So that mindfulness, being in that moment and just appreciating the simple life is really, really important. And then, of course, please focus on your sleep cycle. This generation, I don't know what is happening to them. They just sleep like 3 a.m. in the morning, 4 a.m. in the morning, and they're just hardly sleeping for 2 hours, 3 hours a day. Don't do that to your health,
I can
particularly women.
actually vouch for that in my personal experience. I used to think, like when I was like preparing for my 10th boards, for example, I would not sleep for days and I would think that's cool because I'm working hard and I think it was a completely toxic mindset back then. I'm so glad I'm over it. I love my 8 hour sleep very much now and I can
That
definitely
is important.
see the
That is
difference.
important to have a good hormonal health cycle as well.
Yeah,
Because in future then you're going to have a lot of issues. Your hormonal cycle just goes up and down
right,
if you don't
especially
sleep in
for
proper time.
females. Mhm.
Yeah, go out in sun, have a nice sleep hygiene, eat healthy food, and just limit your time. I mean, it's very important to be connected and be on social media, but do social media talks for 24 hours, maybe in a week, if possible, or every day for 4 hours. This is my social. I have no social media. That means no checking of WhatsApp or no replying to any call unless and until it's a call from your mom. Do reply to your moms, please. They tend to worry a lot if you don't reply. But apart from that,
Mhm.
apart from those emergency calls, just for 2 hours or 1 hour, stay away from technology. And these simple things can really bring bigger changes in your life. You'll feel that you're like a lot more happier, a lot more present in the moment, and a lot more calm.
Yeah, I can actually vouch for each and every single point you just mentioned because I've had so much trial and error with my lifestyle here as an international student and in life in general, not just as an international student. Thank you so much for sharing all of those and thank you so much for sharing your experience. That's a wrap on today's conversation. Again, thank you for sharing deep insights into mental health therapy and the ways we can truly take care of our minds in this fast-paced world. Your work in this field is not just inspiring, but truly necessary. And I know our listeners will walk away today with a lot to think about and hopefully a few steps to implement in their own lives. To everyone listening, thank you for being here. Conversations like these matter because mental health matters. If today's discussion resonated with you, share it with somebody who might need to hear it. And as always, take care of your mind, take care of yourself, and remember, you don't have to navigate life changes alone. Until next time, stay well and stay kind to yourself. Thank you.